Hey guys, it's Will, Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society, another coronavirus lockdown special. Guess what I have? Hell effing yes. Guess what that is? Clan of the White Lotus. This is the 88 Asia release, which is, the 88 Films kind of like sub-label for Asian cinema. And so we got the slipcase, and then you open that up. Ta-da! And you have the movie. There you go. And disc, booklet, and then you have thing. And this is going to be like a hybrid episode where I'm going to do a review of the Blu-ray. There's the what's in there hiding in the case, and then there's not a lot on this Blu-ray, and so because a lot of the Shaw Brothers films releases with 88 Films are more of just like it's about the film. It's kind of a bare bones release in terms of the Blu-ray. But they never skimp on the booklets, ever, 88 Films. Their booklets are always awesome, and the paper is really high quality. It has this really nice, like, matte kind of finish. And there's a great essay in here by James Oliver, who talks about the film and kind of, like, contextualizing it historically and talking about the actors who were in it and the other talent that was involved. There you go. So, again, awesome booklet. So, awesome physical packaging as always. And so this is going to be like a hybrid Blu-ray review and then movie review. So, and I don't, maybe not like necessarily a review of the movie in terms of like, an in-depth kind of, here's my 35 minutes of opinion, but more of like a, just kind of me talking about the movie, my perceptions of it, where it fits in history and stuff like that. So, this film was released in 1980. It was directed by Lollier, so as you may know, I don't speak any Cantonese, and so I don't know how to pronounce all the names, and I often get them wrong because I've only just ever seen them written down for the most part. But so Lollier is the director, and he plays White Lotus. It's right here on the cover, and then Gordon Liu is in this film, and Cara Wai is in this film, and then a bunch of other kind of like Shaw Brothers regulars who you'll recognize if you've seen a number of their films. In 1980, right? I said that, released in 1980. So this movie is kind of a sequel, kind of a remake of Executioners from Shaolin, which came out in 1977. It was a really big hit for Shaw Brothers and starred Pai Mei, who is a character who is a really big hit from Shaw Brothers, who you may know from Kill Bill. He's in Kill Bill Volume 2, right? And he actually, Gordon Liu, who was the hero in this movie, who is fighting Pai Mei, plays Pai Mei in Kill Bill 2. He's like 1,000 years old, right? At that point, thinking Kill Bill 2, he's like really, really old, right? So if you've seen Executioners of Shaolin, you know that it ends with Pai Mei, spoiler alert, it ends with Pai Mei being defeated. So in this film, we start with the demise of Pai Mei, and then we follow the characters who beat him, and they have a run-in with this evil character who is more or less identical to Pai Mei, whose name is White Lotus, and he supposedly was like a classmate of Pai Mei's, and so he's like bound to get revenge. It's kind of a flimsy excuse. And as James Oliver says in his essay in here, this character and Lollier had actually played Pai Mei before in another movie. Look at that. He looks exactly like Pai Mei. He acts exactly like Pai Mei. And kind of the idea was the Shaw Brothers were kind of like, well, we shot ourselves in the foot killing Pai Mei because people love Pai Mei so much, so let's just make this guy who's exactly like Pai Mei and just give him a different name. In terms of the release, it looks and sounds incredible. Like this and the 8 Diagram Pole Fighter release from 88 Films, which I think is it's that one right there. Those are the best I've ever seen a Shaw Brothers movie look. Now, admittedly, I do actually. I have the American Blu-ray release of, I think, 36 Chamber of the Shaolin. So I have seen Blu-ray and HD releases of Shaw Brothers films before, and none of them look this good. And the audio is great, and the subtitles are really good. And so, as I've said, I don't speak Cantonese, so how do I know the subtitles are good? Someone, actually Kung Fu Bob, who does a lot of the slipcover artwork for these 88 Films releases, pointed out to me on another YouTuber Instagram that one of the things that 88 Films does, and a lot of other companies that put these films out in English don't do, is that they subtitle everything, including like signs. So there's like a sign hanging on a store, they'll subtitle it. You know what that store is, or if someone's going to like a temple, it'll tell you the name of it, so stuff like that. So that's how you know that these are very good subtitles, is that they're invested in helping you understand the film, not just giving you, like direct translations of the dialogue, basically. So the setup of this film, like I said, is that these guys kill Pai Mei, and then White Lotus comes, and he's like, I'm going to get revenge for Pai Mei. And he ends up killing one of the two guys. I should say spoiler alert, too. And he ends up killing the two guys who go and kill Pai Mei, right, are dating these two women. One is pregnant, one is not. The pregnant one survives. Her fiance dies. And then the other woman dies, who is Gordon Liu's, soon to be betrothed, basically. And so Gordon Liu and Kara Wai, who play the man and the woman who survive, flee to another town, and they go into hiding, basically. And Gordon Liu is hellbent on revenge, so he has to find out how to get revenge on Pai Mei, because Pai Mei's kung fu is so much stronger than his, right? So he has to find new methods of doing kung fu. So this is again, this is very similar to the plot of Executioners of Shaolin, right, where there's like a kid who has to learn from his parents how to do kung fu to get revenge on Pai Mei, right? So, but this is kind of like a subgenre of Shaw Brothers films, almost, where you have someone who needs to get revenge and they need to learn new skills in order to do it. There's like a film with T. Lung that's very similar, where he is almost killed, and he's taken in by, and all the people around him are killed, and he's taken in by these monks who are like, they look really goofy, and they're kind of like the Three Stooges. Like, you think they're just these complete morons, but they're actually like idiot savants with like incredible kung fu, and they teach him all this crazy stuff, and he goes out and whoops everyone's ass and gets revenge, right? And like that movie, this also has a very kind of classic Shaw Brothers, but I think a very weird to people who are used to watching Western films, mixture of slapstick comedy and really brutal revenge violence. So, typically in Western cinema, and especially in American cinema, you have a very rigid tone for a film, right? And Japanese and Hong Kong films, especially, I find, have a lot of tonal elasticity to them. And what I mean by that is that you'll have corny or slapstick humor alongside like brutal violence, like you see that in the Zatoichi films, for instance, right? Although those are like a lot more tongue-in-cheek, but you will see in Japanese films extreme sentiment and then extreme violence, and you will see that in Hong Kong cinema too. And I think in South Korean film, because South Korean films always come up in conversations where I talk to people about Japanese and Hong Kong cinema. These are all different cinema cultures, right? But because they're all in the same kind of region of the world, people always bring them up in conversation together, which is maybe not always helpful and doesn't really make a ton of sense. But to address the issue of South Korean cinema, because South Korean cinema does mix humor and darkness and violence and brutality, South Korean films tend to be really dark in their humor and in their violence, right? And I'm talking about the dark ones. I'm not talking about, like, obviously there are ones that aren't like that at all, right? But, like films like The Wailing or Memories of Murder or, like Lady Vengeance, which are all films that have a lot of humor in them, but are also really dark, brutal, violent movies. They're black comedies, right? So they're more like David Fincher type movies, where you'll have like Gone Girl or Fight Club or whatever, that there's humor in them, but it's very dark, bleak humor, right? So it fits the tone of the film. I'm talking here about like really silly, like Three Stooges style, ridiculous slapstick mixed with like brutal revenge kung fu movies. So if you're looking for like a straight ahead, hard hitting, ass whooping, no haha funny kung fu movie, this is not for you. Maybe a movie like what's that movie called? Two Champions of Shaolin. That's an incredible movie, and that's like a really brutal, just like everyone getting murdered everywhere. Not funny at all. Shaw Brothers film Death Duel is another like really good, straight up, pretty hardcore. Although it has like a kind of that movie moves very quickly, and it has a plot that does not hold your hand, so you have to pay attention to it. But it's a very good movie. I would say lean more in that direction if you're looking for that type of film. But if you don't mind that kind of tonal elasticity, this is a great example of that. It's a very good movie. So one of the things I think makes this film really interesting is that oftentimes these movies where someone has to go and learn a new style of kung fu to go and defeat someone they're trying to get revenge on, there's basically one evolution where they get their ass whooped, they go off, They learn their new style. You see the training montages. You see them practicing it. They go and they get their revenge. In this movie, he actually fails to get his revenge a couple of times because the kung fu that he's learning is not the right one. And this is what makes this movie, I think, really interesting. What ends up happening, spoiler alert, is he needs to learn female forms of kung fu from the Kara Y character, right? This is the Gordon Liu character. And he's this very kind of like hard-headed, aggressive, masculine, macho male character. And he needs to learn female kung fu. And he needs to learn it by doing things that typically a man in that time period in Hong Kong would not have been doing, which includes raising this baby, right? Doing sewing and pinpoint needlework and stuff like that, and all these other things to make his body more pliant and his mind more pliant, right? And so the film gets at this idea of completeness, and that he cannot be complete. And this is obviously, you have the physical plot echoing the emotional plot, right? Because emotionally he's lost something and he needs to find a way to be complete and be more at peace. And physically he finds that in combining his male kung fu with the female kung fu. And it's almost this like yin and yang kind of concept of finding a whole circle with multiple parts that complete one another, right? And you had that in Executioners of Shaolin too, interestingly, because the character in that movie is a kid who needs to combine his dad's style of kung fu with his mom's style of kung fu in order to beat Pai Mei, right? And so you combine, and that's interesting too, because it's not just combining the male and the female, but it's combining your own history, reconciling your past in order to create your future, right? So you have these kind of like underlying, almost like ontological themes going on within these like basically just straight ahead ass whooping revenge kung fu movies, which are really fun to watch, right? And which may not have even been trying to get at these themes. It's entirely possible that they didn't give a shit about these things and they were just like, let's just make this badass movie, and then this will happen, that will happen, whatever, cool, yeah, whatever. And I'm reading too much into this. But I mean, you know, I've talked long enough. I think that's basically my 2 cents. The film is called Clan of the White Lotus. This is the 88 Films release. If you're a fan of Shaw Brothers, you owe it to yourself to just buy these 88 Films releases because they're excellent. And the more money you put into these companies putting out these films, the more of these films they will put out, right? It's kind of obvious logic, but it's true. And it's always good to remind people of that. So my name is Will. This is Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. Thank you so much for watching this video. We will see you next time.